Today, I'm talking about one of the most commonly cited struggles for parents of teens and tweens: attitude and disrespect, and how you can manage that attitude and disrespect. Hey there, I'm Ann Coleman, an attorney turned parent educator, and I've spent years studying the science of teen behavior and parenting after messing up and then turning things around with my own teenage son. And I'm sure, like me and millions of other parents, you've dealt with at least a bit of snark from your teenager. If your teen isn't snarky, I'd be more concerned because they would be extremely unusual. But just because we all deal with it certainly doesn't make it any less of an issue. So, why are teens the way they are? And what do we do about this type of behavior? First, I've learned that the definition of respect or politeness can depend on the parent. And the more you lean towards the controlling, authoritarian style of parenting, the more behavior you're likely to consider disrespectful. So, really be careful that you're not overreacting to their behavior. And I'll talk about that in a minute. First, let's make the distinction between your teen being rude in the middle of an emotional meltdown and just being rude in the car on the way to the ball game. These situations are not the same as far as how you should respond. When they're emotionally dysregulated, you need to concentrate on the emotion, on connecting with them in that moment by listening and acknowledging and helping them work through it. It's not the time to correct their behavior. You can always address it later after the storm has passed if necessary. What happens quite often is that your kid will end up apologizing before you even try to discuss it with them later. And if they don't apologize, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. You can go ahead and in one sentence let them know that what they said was hurtful or rude or not nice, however you want to say it, and that you really hope that the next time they can express how they feel without using those words or making those remarks. That's enough. More than that, and it becomes a lecture, and they will totally tune you out. But what about when it's regular old run of the mill, rude behavior, not having a meltdown? They just didn't like what you said, or they gave you an eye roll, or they answered your question very sarcastically, or ignored you completely, or said something that really hurt your feelings. You know the type of behavior I'm talking about. Why do they do this? A lot of it falls under the big umbrella of individuation. Teens are trying to learn who they are and they're becoming their own person, separate and apart from you. And they're trying to show you that they know as much, if not more, than you do. And they're absolutely not a little kid anymore. They put all their value right now in their friends. Their friends are at the top of the food chain and you're way down at the bottom. There's an innate sense that they need to push you away to make it clear that they don't need you in the same way they did when they were a child, and that you don't really understand who they are anymore. Girls in particular have a really special way of doing this to their mothers, and it can hurt to the core. They know those specific vulnerabilities and they key in on them. And they have a knack for saying things in a joking manner that really bites, and it makes you wonder if they really know what they're doing or not. Usually they do. But boys do the same pushing away too. They're just a little more upfront about it. Another reason that your teens can be so rude and mean and unappreciative, and I think we all just kind of group that under the disrespectful umbrella, is because of their super sensitive amygdala, the emotional center of their brain, their threat detector. It's always on high alert in a teen. So they're quick to be annoyed or frustrated or angry, which in turn causes their impolite behavior. They pop off a snarky remark before they even have time to think about it. And the reason is the rational thinking part of the brain, the part that controls executive functions like using self control and making good decisions and emotional regulation. It's a work in progress, and it won't be fully online until they're in their at least mid to late 20s. So their emotional sensitivity is a real problem for us and for them. They don't want to feel this way any more than we want to deal with it. Their moodiness and grumpiness baffles them too. And it's even worse if your teen is under a lot of stress and if it develops into anxiety, which it easily can do. Your teen is without a doubt under a ton of stress: school, friends, romantic relationships, social media, parents. It's a lot. You can't say, well, they don't know what stress is like until they've had a job and kids and a mortgage to pay. That's just wrong. because teens have never done any of these things. They only know the stress they know, and they know it's stressful. So don't compare their stress to yours. Their stress is real. And school is especially stressful. They have to be on all day long, rushing from class to class, eating lunch at ungodly times, being called out for things they may or may not have done, trying to keep up, trying not to look stupid. They can't even go to the bathroom when they need to. It's crazy. So when they get home in the afternoons, they are done. It's like they've been in this tight little ball all day long and they just can't do it a minute longer. That's when we get the snark and the attitude a lot of times. Something else to remember, especially when you're feeling unappreciated because of the snide comments or the unkind digs, teens have not fully developed their ability to empathize. I've seen this close up and personal many times. You think, how can they say that to me? What on earth are they thinking? Surely they'll apologize. They can't possibly mean that. Well, maybe they do and maybe they don't. But either way, they're not really concerned much of the time about how it sounds or how it made us feel. This is why they sometimes come off as heartless, cold, and mean. They can be empathetic some of the time, or to their friends, or to the dog, just not always us. Teens can also be impolite or rude when their autonomy is threatened. Did you just ask them a question that embarrassed them in front of a friend? Did you demand that they clean their room this minute? Did you tell them you wouldn't let them cut their hair the way they wanted to? If you're criticizing, correcting, scolding, reminding, teasing, all of these things can provoke a snarky remark or a jerky comment because all of these things threaten their autonomy. Think about your timing, the way you say something, how many times you've already said it. And remember that teens often interpret neutral comments, facial expressions, and tone as negative because of their overly sensitive amygdala, that emotional center of the brain. So while you might think that a reminder to clean out their backpack is not a big deal, that's not how they see it. That joke about their new haircut, not funny. Your teen might be snarky because they didn't get enough sleep last night, too. They rarely get enough sleep. They should be getting at least 9.25 hours of sleep a night, but their brain and their school start times don't allow for that. The part of their brain that makes them sleepy is put off by at least a couple of hours now. And when they don't get that sleep, their amygdala is much easier to activate than usual, which means grumpiness squared. And ultimately, our teens are rude to us because they know it's safe. They know we're not going anywhere. They know we'll love them anyway, even if we're not going to tolerate their disrespectful behavior. So, what are we supposed to do when our kids smart off, talk back, or just plain mean? First of all, it's a good idea, if this is happening often, to have a conversation about it. I'll link to a podcast episode in the description that will help you approach any sort of problem behavior in a non-confrontational and collaborative manner. Maybe they're going through something with a friend. Maybe they feel really anxious about something going on in their life. You will never know unless you start that conversation. This would be a good time to address your family's rules and values around how you treat each other and how you talk to each other. Again, a few sentences, not a big long lecture. Let them know that the natural consequences of being snarky all the time is the potential for conflict, for hurt feelings and disconnection, and that you really don't want that. Again, not talking about a lecture here. You're trying to figure out if there's something you can do to help them, and you're expressing clear boundaries around this sort of behavior. Make it short and sweet. That's great, but what do we do in the moment when it's happening? Well, I think that truly depends on the situation. Of course, as always, you have to stay calm. Do not let this send you and your teen down a dark hole. There's no reason to raise your voice. There's no reason to become especially upset. And if you do, you need to remove yourself from the situation for a few minutes if possible. If you treat their rudeness by yelling, shaming, calling their character into question, you're modeling the exact behavior you don't want to see in them. So be careful. What if your teen's stomping around, rolling their eyes, and huffing and puffing, but they're generally doing what they're supposed to be doing? You should really just ignore it. If you ask them to take out the garbage or put their laundry in the washer and they make a little scene, but they do it anyway, calling them out for that will only throw fuel on a fire that hasn't quite started yet. If you want to fight, that's a great way to start one. And it can be really hard to ignore when it's in front of another family member or friends, but resist the temptation to show these other people that you don't put up with that kind of behavior. Because frankly, it's none of their business and it won't look any better if you make a scene. You can also use humor when they're rude. When you understand that it's really not about you, you don't have to take it so personally. And instead, maybe you can find something funny in the moment that will lighten the mood. For example, if they criticize you, jump in there with some self-deprecating comment that would make them laugh. We don't have to take everything so seriously. Throwing a little humor on it can really diffuse an otherwise awkward moment. And if you can't do that and it was something truly hurtful, you can call it out by saying something like, wow, that hurt, or ouch. If it's really curt or rude, use, I'm going to let you try that again, or take another stab at that, or something like, I know you didn't mean to say it that way. Let's take a do-over. Anything like that will let them know straight away that what they said was not acceptable. Just be sure to not throw in your own sarcasm or attitude along with that. It will not help to say, oh, hell no, you want to try that again? Not going to help your cause. Don't give a lecture. Don't say, we've talked about this before. You can't talk to me that way. I'm your parent. And don't get defensive and argue with them about them being mean or the snarky thing that they said or the put down. Do not engage. Do not take the bait. As a matter of fact, this might even be one of those comments you simply ignore. Or you could say something like, we'll talk about it later. So you can calm down and think. You can always put things off so you can think first. Remember, it's not an emergency. If you overreact and give them consequences, you've ruined an opportunity to let them self-correct or to have a short conversation about it and tell them how they've hurt your feelings. Bottom line, remember that you cannot make them act a certain way. They have to learn how, and they have to want to learn how from you. If you make it all about doing what you say or else, they will rebel against it. Your relationship, your connection, is where your strength is here. Keep your connection by not taking this and blowing it up into something it isn't. All right, I have some links for you in the description to learn more. And if you got something out of today's video, I'd love for you to subscribe. My goal is to upload 2 videos a week, so I'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much.